Hello guys, this is the third episode of Architecture Student Reacts. Today we have quite interesting topics and videos to discuss, so let's just jump right into it. Wow, okay. This is the library of St. Gallen's Abbey. Now, there are quite a few very interesting details about this library, and there is a funny one as well. So the first important thing about this library is that it dates back to the 8th century. So from the 8th century, the monastery was collecting books, collecting manuscripts, rewriting them, reworking them, republishing them, and keeping this old knowledge in the library for hundreds of years. And architecture has a lot, and I mean a lot, to thank this library, because Vitruvius's 10 books on architecture was rediscovered here in this library by Poggio Bracciolini in the 15th century. And after he discovered this book that talks extensively about the classical orders and how to work with them and how to build buildings using the classical orders and what are the proportions and the rules of the classical orders, this started a change in the architecture of the times. This is the thing that basically sparked the Renaissance, because now we knew the rules that the Romans and the Greeks used for their buildings. We also had examples from the Roman forums and the archaeological sites that have been discovered throughout Italy, and also the thinking of the times has changed towards humanism, which fit the values of the ancient Greeks. So that's for the architecture part of the library. And the funny thing about the library is that if you enter it, if you visit it, you have to wear slippers inside, because the wooden floor that it has dates back to the 18th century, and of course people want to conserve it. And if everyone would just walk with regular shoes inside, then it would probably be destroyed. Let's move on to our next video. Wow. Wow, this is a very, very beautiful interior. Whoa. Amazing woodwork. Amazing. Okay, I had to do a bit of research, and I checked all of the comments that were below this post. Almost everyone asks where this building, where this chateau is, because the original description only mentions that it's in the Ardèche region, but that's it. And nobody could find the chateau, the building that these interiors belong to. So I did the research, I found the chateau. And the chateau that these interiors originate from is Chateau Clement, which dates back to the 19th century. It was built in the 1870s, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name of the style, Chateauesque, which basically tried to revive the 15th and 16th century chateau styles of France with modern materials, with modern technologies. So it paints a bit of a fake picture, but still the intention is quite nice, to build something beautiful, something timeless. Of course, there's many other chateaus built in the 19th century and before that. This one as well serves the aristocratic life, and it was built as a retreat for the extremely wealthy population of France. But the fact that it was built in the 19th century means that its preservation is quite difficult. Unlike the earlier versions, which only used stone and wood and these materials, the modern chateaus of the 19th century used a lot of different kinds of materials for the structure, for the facades. Because of these mixed construction techniques and materials, it's a bit more difficult to preserve these. Nonetheless, they are very, very beautiful, amazing places. So there you have it. This is the Chateau Clement from the Ardèche region of France. You're welcome. Let's see the next video. Okay, I quite like these videos where you can see a comparison of modern buildings with older ancient buildings, and then there is a meme kind of thing. So on the left we can see a contemporary church, and then on the right we can see a church said to be built in the 12th century. But yeah, the trend that we see, that modern design and contemporary design simplifies a lot of things inside of these holy places, is quite real and quite tangible. The problem with this tendency that many point out is that the unadorned walls, the simplified surfaces and the simplified forms don't really serve the purpose of creating this holy atmosphere that would facilitate worship and that would ensure that the people entering this church could have a meditative mindset. And this interior doesn't really inspire worship and prayer and meditation. Rather, it follows a modernist trend, a contemporary trend of composing interiors and of creating architecture that doesn't really fit the needs of older traditional places. So as in other places, here as well, here I think more importantly, we have to weigh whether we want to follow contemporary trends or whether we should stick with the traditional forms and the traditional way of composing spaces. And also, there isn't anything wrong with sticking to the traditional trends, because if we look back to the very basics of architecture and the first book on architecture, which I mentioned already, Vitruvius's 10 books on architecture, the 3 principles that he posits for good architecture is firmitas, utilitas, and venustas. These 3 refer to firmness, the stability of the building, utilitas, the usefulness of the building, and venustas, the beauty of the building. If you follow these 3, then you can create beautiful architecture. This doesn't mean that you have to stick to a style, but you have to have balance between these 3. Okay, and now for the last video of today. This is the Medici Chapel in Florence. Wow. Wow. Okay, some beautiful frescoes. So the story behind this chapel in particular and the other chapel that is connected to the same church is the following. This is called the Sagrestia Vecchia, and there is a Sagrestia Nuova on the other side of the transept. The first one, the Sagrestia Vecchia, was built by Brunelleschi in the 15th century, in the early part of the Renaissance, and then the newer one, the Sagrestia Nuova, was built by Michelangelo. Of course, these 2 present 2 different kinds of architectural styles. One is early Renaissance, while the newer one is more of a Mannerist interpretation of Renaissance. As for Mannerism, it refers to the period in Renaissance architecture where personal expression of the classical orders, of the classical style, received a importance. So not just the correctness of proportions and the symmetry and the balance of the composition mattered, but also the personal style of the architect. As for the 2 sacristies, they were made for the Medici family as burial chapels. 2 of the leaders, Lorenzo and Giuliano, if I'm not mistaken, were to be buried there. The 2 chapels show the power of the Medici family and their influence. So yeah, that's basically it for today's video. See you next week. Bye.